Hey everybody, I'm Sara Wiseman and welcome to our Visionary Psychics Summit. And here we are with one of our Visionary Psychics, Lana Joe. Welcome, Lana.
Hi, thank you
Hi.
for having me here.
Yeah, so it's my great delight. We can see all your beautiful, luscious, so healthy plants working energetically in the background. So that's wonderful.
Thank
Um,
you.
so you've come from a very interesting background, Lana, in terms of this work. Like you had this work pretty much fully established, and then you took some detours or some other paths. And I just wondered how you kind of like how you came to this place now in your life and sort of what nudged you to go in this direction again.
Oh, thank you. Yes, so my pathway was in my head very linear when I was coming into college and doing my degrees and spending time going in that pathway. And my upbringing was very much like I need to get more degrees. And so I got a couple of bachelors, a couple of masters, but along the way, while I was doing some finance classes on the East Coast, I just realized there's something more. And that's when I started enrolling into um, developing your third eye courses and really taking my weekends to dive deep into this space and eventually having my own spiritual awakening, but honestly, kind of keeping it under tab. So I had kind of an underground reading kind of
Mhm.
deal where they would know me and but by day I'd be like doing my MBA classes and everything. But at the same time, it was because I was far away from my family, it was not that difficult for me to just kind of like do my thing. It's when I'm closer, when I have to kind of step up in my own power. So I did take a break, like you said. Um, I took a break. I was doing lots of readings and then I took a break, a detour. During that time, I think I deepened my human self, really grew roots. Um, and then something just called me back. Like I feel like when the pendulum swings too far in either direction, I feel out of balance. So right now I'm coming back into that space where it's a combination of both my grounded space, but also connected to the divine. So
Yeah.
yeah, just but it
Well,
took a
and
journey. So
yeah, absolutely. Like, so it was very, it was a decision or an intention that you had. It wasn't just, like my journey was more like well, I always had this, but I wasn't aware. And then out of the blue, I kind of got hit on the head by the 2x4 of the universe. But yours was more like, it was very intentional. You made a pretty conscious decision that you were going to follow this part of you. How was it? It must have been interesting to have, like, you're very, very, very strong in your third eye visioning. Like, it's really easy. I don't know if it's easy for you, but you're really good at it. And that must have been interesting to have that going on while at the same time working in more linear structures where perhaps that understanding couldn't be brought into the discussion, or um, you just were aware of two parts of you working differently. It just must have been kind of fascinating for you.
definitely. And it's in the beginning, it was not a struggle, but I really thought about how to weave this in. The
Mhm.
people that are very close to me understand this very deep, intuitive, I would say almost woo side of it, and they accept it. And there was a professional front that I put forward. But if you talk to me long enough, you'll understand that I speak in terms of energetics.
Mhm.
And the the intentional part of it was the second half of, me coming to being was so that it was because I've done a lot of shadow work. I had to force myself to really confront all the dark parts of me that brought up fear, that didn't accept this newer version of me, and the resistance to it as well. And it also brought back my past when I was younger, when I would see beings from the other side. And thankfully, my mom is very um, open to that. She would explain to me, sometimes you see beings and they just are in a hard place, and so they look kind of scary. And this is when I was like maybe 7 or 8 years old. And then when I was 9, when my cousin passed away, I saw him in my dream, and I woke up at that time coming out of the kitchen, and my dad had saw him at the same time in that, in his dream. And so it wasn't until I was in my 20s when I woke up. I was sleeping, and it was the middle of the night. I was a reporter in Sacramento, and I saw my uncle there, and he was playing tennis with me. And I asked him, "Uncle, what are you doing here?" Because I just knew that he had just fallen sick, and just recently, within a few months. I just thought it was really bizarre that he was in my dream, because he actually gave me my very first tennis racket.
Oh, right.
So yeah, so I didn't know why, and this is before I even opened up to my intuitive gifts. It was in the middle of the night, 2:30-ish, 3. I packed up my car. I packed up my dog, my poor sleeping dog. He was like, "What is going on?" And I just drove straight down to see my parents, my aunts, and my family down in Orange County. And I walked into a room of just people crying
Yeah.
because my uncle had just passed. And I can't say any rational thought went into me just packing up and just going. But this was something that started opening me up to this space. And my aunt told me later on that morning at around 6 a.m., they had heard the closet door where he kept all of his tennis rackets open. So, and I felt weird telling my family,
Right.
but
Right.
I, told my mom, and so that was that. And that started planting a seed in terms of
Yeah.
like, well, there's this other space inside of me that's calling. And I would say not too long after that, I started really diving a little bit deeper into this other space that's within me. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's so having an incident or an experience like that where it's so like some of this work is so hazy and floaty, like, or if we're working on clients' behalf, we may get all this information, but we don't necessarily have that follow-up from them. This happened, this happened, this happened, like you said, we might not hear about that, but having that experience, it was almost like there was no arguing with the universe. This really happened. Not only did you have experience with your uncle during his transition, but that deep physical knowledge to go right directly to the family because you were needed, to hold space for that. And like, that's really profound, and it's inarguable. So we don't always get these big experiences that are inarguable all the time, but just having one or two is enough to set us, if we're listening, because you could have just gone home and go, that was weird, and then never responded, but you chose to, like, that was weird, and I think I'm being called in this direction. It was also interesting when you were saying, like, you used to be sort of more secretive in your practice, and I had this flooding or flashback to a lot of people doing this work. We have had to be very hidden. We have had to go give the secret knock on the door in those, shrouds of night, going from house to house to do this work. And it just kind of brought that image to me. When you're working now, or as you're on this path, what kinds of things are the most interesting that, like, you are thinking about exploring in these fields? Like, what's captivating your imagination right now?
I love this question. Right now, what's captivating me is really activating the inner wisdom inside of ourselves. I feel like my lived experiences really conditioned me to listen to outside sources where people would tell you what you need to do. This is what achievement looks like, what success looks like. And, through my practice, I've worked in the Akashic Records, I've worked in Reiki. So I've done all of this, and these are all tool sets. But the essence that's coming up for me is really tuning in to that frequency that is your deepest wisdom, your most authentic faith for yourself, where your soul is yearning to express itself in a way that might be very new to
Mhm.
you in maybe this lifetime. So
Yeah.
for me, it's really tuning into that inner wisdom, inner magic. So
Yeah. Do you think that in the collective, like I'm sensing a great deal of change, and we've talked about this in our groups, and we've talked about this this idea of this rapid expansion in the soul collective as a whole, so that what you said, people having experiences that are new to this lifetime, like that this is happening somewhat rapidly for not just us or others in this field, but like for lots of people, which is
yeah,
very exciting. Do
love
you
that.
notice, even from when you were doing the secret knock on the door work to now, like people are different or have different types of questions?
Yes, I just got chills when you said that. And when I was doing my secret stuff, it was just like, um, they were like, "Oh, check her out. She does energy work." And it was new for me, but I would feel pockets of stuff, and it was so like hush hush in that way, but it was like really exciting. I feel like now there are my friends who have always been very like conventional professional working, and that was me before, in startup work and everything. They're like, "Hey, I've been noticing 222s a lot, or three three
Mhm.
threes," and they start sending me, when it hits the clock and it shows up, and then they would ask me, "Oh, what's happening energetically right now on astrologically?" So like, I want to say there's a lot more curiosity, there's a lot more unintentional awareness of it. And I feel like
Mhm.
it might be the collective where we're all opening up our little corner. Like for me, I'm just like, this
Mhm.
is my little corner that I'm opening up, that I'm just keeping the light, being a light keeper, making sure that this energy is here, this frequency is here. This is my small little piece of the
Mhm.
puzzle in all of
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
But I feel like people that are, bumping in and they're like curious, I feel like in some ways they're activating their own journey as well. So, in their
Yeah,
curiosity.
absolutely. I love this idea of the piece of the puzzle, because each of us, we don't all have to have the same gifts. And I think sometimes people say, someone watching might be like, well, I don't see departed, or, I can't see energy and that, but they may be like this magnificent cook, or able to run families really well, or whatever, speak multiple languages. I don't know what it is, but this idea, like this is just one field, it is
Mhm.
cool, we like it, but also like all the other fields have incredible value. This idea of each of us putting our piece of the puzzle in the greater collective puzzle, like all the pieces are required. And the more we can get in touch with, like you said, the soul wisdom, so that we know what piece of the puzzle is our highest calling to contribute, I think that that can be incredibly useful to people. Yeah.
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 It's like that quote is this: if you judge a fish by its ability to climb, it will
Yeah.
be
Oh
a
my gosh.
failure,
That's right.
And it's like, we need all the people out there that are, not necessarily doing this work, but doing the work that they're doing, and really expressing what it is that's their soul calling,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just absolutely grateful for everybody. Just like a box of crayons, you need all the different shades. It's not just one blue, it's like
Yeah.
variants, shades, so many colors. That's part of our collective.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm really interested currently in working. Like, it's interesting that you have your beautiful plants, but I'm really interested in, um, for me, opening up this idea of connecting or communicating with, um, like plants, animals, weather systems, that whole like the natural collective. Because I've done a lot of exploring in the other realms, but I sort of haven't really explored much, whereas other people have. So that's just an example of each of us going towards our highest purpose, bringing the treasures or the understandings we understand and offering it to the group as a whole. What would you say to someone who is like so resistant or just doesn't believe? Or I'm sure you come across people like that all the time. They're like, what? No, not interested. So what's your, how do you kind of hold your space with that pushback or disagreement, or it's not true, or what do you do there?
It's my first thing is I unhook myself from having to convince them any otherwise, because
Yeah.
it's like, you know, say two people with their eyes closed, one was touching the trunk. This is a story about the
Hmm.
trunk of the elephant, the other one's touching the tail, and they're like, this is the elephant, this is representative, and it's their way of truth. And I would say, well, you know, once, if they, if that's really where they stand, I'll honor that where they're at, just because, and I don't have to necessarily engage. I used to be like, I need to convince this person, and I've since then matured and just said, well, you know, I will pause and listen to them. I think being in that space of neutrality allows me to listen. Okay, where are they coming from? Some folks really enjoy being just in the rational mind and the logical mind, which is fine. You know, I think it's important to have all of those aspects, and that's their safe space. And I can't push them beyond. I just can only meet them where they're at, as long as they're, you know, respectful of where I come from with that. So
Yeah.
maintaining my own innate sense of my own frequency for myself, but without feeling I need to commingle with theirs.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And even in this general field of metaphysics, I'm not even sure what we call it. Like there's so many different ways and so many different systems, and especially when I deal with people, say from different countries, like then you add another layer of cultural different ways of experiencing or expressing the languaging. And so even in this field, there are many, many different systems. And I think that's right. Like we just each have to follow as we are guided.
yeah,
And for me, it's been like, how can I shed as much identity or system, like like your process? How can I
yeah.
shed as much as possible and just be with what is happening right now without needing to sort it or systemize it? That's just kind of a way of thinking about things.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. That's where I'm at too. Just kind of like unhooking myself
Unhooking. Yeah.
and just really giving back their energy, because sometimes when we commingle we just, our energies intertwine, and I'm like, you know, I'm just going to bring back, but at the same time I enjoy listening to other people's point of views. I think that's the
Yeah.
journalist in me. Just, I'm just curious, naturally curious, just because this is how we all learn, this is how
Yeah.
we kind of see different perspectives and just maintain an open mind about that. So because like people are always convinced that they're right. So they're always like
Yeah.
God is on their side, even if they're
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
not so great things, but they're like, this is, you know, this is what they feel called to do. So I just, as long as they're not harming me, I'm like, okay, I'm open to listening what you're saying. So
Yeah. People
yeah.
are really fascinating. Um, yeah, and we're just in human evolution. Like when you and I
Yes.
come around next lifetimes, we'll be like, oh, it went a lot further. And then the next lifetime, oh, it went a lot further. So
Yeah.
we're just at the
We're
place where
just
we have
trying, you know, we're just trying
just,
and see where our edges are. Like, let's just
yeah,
have fun. Like, yeah, I'll
yeah,
see you again next time.
yeah, exactly. Well, Lana, thank you so much for being on the
Yeah.
summit. And I will put all of your contact information below so people can reach out to you if they want to do some work with you. But I really appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.